Hi lovelies, and welcome to today's video. The last couple days I sat down and I compiled all of the things that I think helped us successfully get pregnant even though I have PCOS, and I'm going to share them with you guys in today's video. When I brought up this topic a couple weeks ago in one of my first pregnancy update videos, there was quite a bit of a response, people saying they would be interested in seeing what all we did exactly to contribute to what I think is successfully becoming pregnant. Right before I became pregnant, I did film a video called What We Are Doing Differently This Cycle. If you guys are completely unaware, we were trying to conceive pretty much since January of this year, and it took us about 6 cycles to get pregnant, which was completely different for baby number 2 in comparison to our first. My husband Donald and I have one daughter already. Her name is Kala. She's 2 years old. So in the video where I shared with you guys what we were doing differently this cycle, and again, I can link that for you guys in the iCard and down in the description box so you guys can go watch that too. I will say that I just briefly covered some of the things that we were doing. I didn't go into full detail of every single step that I think I'm going to talk about in detail in this video. Before I go to my phone, I will just say I'm not a professional, and I list this in all of my description boxes just so you guys are completely aware every single time. I'm not a professional, and anything that we talk about today, you definitely 100% need to be talking to your doctor about for you and your specific situation. What I'm talking about today is my opinion, things that I did for me personally, and obviously that's not going to be everybody's complete cup of tea because every single person is completely unique, and so is their TTC journey. The first thing I want to mention is period tracking apps. They don't necessarily have to be apps, but I do think that you need to track your period if you are intentionally trying to conceive. I recommend tracking your period for months prior to you actually wanting to conceive. So I know a lot of you are currently trying to conceive, or at least some of the women that reached out to me that said they wanted to see this video are definitely like right in the middle of trying to conceive, and they want to know as many different things as possible to help them successfully become pregnant. But even if you are in the thick of it, if you will, you have probably been tracking your period for months now, and I think that that's great. If you are not currently trying to conceive, but you think you will in the next 6 months to a year, I would definitely start tracking your period right now. Your body is telling you so many different information pieces with your period. The length of your period, the length of your cycle, the different symptoms that come along with your cycle, and I think overall being more attuned to the symptoms that your body is showing you is going to be helpful in your TTC journey. To explain that last statement a little bit further, I will just say that when we were not trying to conceive, I wasn't really paying attention to things like ovulation pains or cervical mucus or length of the complete cycle exactly. You know, you kind of just have this roundabout idea, and a lot of these things are happening so minimally that you're just going about your day and you're not really paying attention to them, especially if you're not trying to conceive. But if you are trying to conceive, you almost become hyper focused on a lot of those things. And I think that even prior to trying to conceive, becoming more attuned to the signals that your body is naturally giving you is going to be overall helpful. I'm filming my 3rd video right now, and I'm hitting a wall. I'm getting very nauseous again. Now, I'm actually not done with this point yet. So it's great to track your period in an app, or I don't know, can you do that by hand? I'm sure you can on a calendar. I mean, what do people do before apps? The last thing I will say about tracking your period on an app is use different apps. So I used something called Ovia Fertility app. I used the Glow app. I occasionally used the Fertility Friend app. The reason I'm telling you that is because they're going to be different based off of their predictions. Even if you do track your cycle and track a bunch of different symptoms, even after 6 months, my apps were still different. They would still give me like a 2 to 5 day window of differences. And that can be huge when you're trying to conceive. So I just like to look at it as different opinions that are being offered to you. So I think it's good to have different ideas of what could be happening, because if we're being totally honest, no one knows exactly the moment you're ovulating, exactly the second that you need to have sex, unless you're going to some sort of specialty fertility clinic and they're doing ultrasounds and they're monitoring your egg size and they're doing all of that stuff. Everything else without that is truly a guesstimate. So for you to just follow one app religiously, maybe that app is off on what it's telling you by 2 to 5-ish days. And like I just said, that is huge in the trying to conceive world. So I think that it's great to have at least 2 different apps on board where you're putting in the same information and then you're taking back the feedback from at least 2 different places. The period apps themselves will then allow you to begin tracking patterns, or you can do that yourself. So the pattern of the length of your cycle, the pattern of the length of your actual first part of your period where you're actually having your period, the date that you typically feel ovulation symptoms. So all of those things can kind of be compiled yourself into your own little experiment, if you will, of patterns that you can start to create for yourself to get to know how your body's working exactly. This is also a really, really, really crucial thing to do if you've been trying to conceive for a long time. Because if you've been trying to conceive for a long time and you end up needing to seek out help from a doctor of some kind or a specialist of some kind, they're gonna want to know those things. And if you have been trying to conceive for 12 months or for 18 months and you haven't been tracking anything and you go to your doctor, you're going to be, I would say, unfortunately, behind somebody who's been tracking their period every single month. They know certain symptoms that they've been noticing. They can see patterns. Even if you're not seeing patterns, just having that information on hand to explain is going to be very helpful to your provider. The next layer that I would recommend adding if you're interested is ovulation testing. I didn't do any ovulation testing with my first daughter, but I definitely dove into them almost immediately with our second round of trying to conceive. I think part of that is because people are being so much more open about what they're doing regarding conception. People are being more open about their struggles in trying to conceive. And overall, I think it's become more common for people to use ovulation kits. I've mentioned to you guys before, but I chose to use the Clear Blue Digital Advanced Ovulation Test. There's so many different kinds that you can get. However, what sold me on the kind that I chose to use was that it detected a rise in 2 different hormones. So the test holder itself will go from level 1, which is a open circle, to level 2, which is a flashing smiley face. So still a circle, but now there's a flashing smiley face. And then to level 3, which I think I needed to go this way. I don't know on the camera. Level 3, which is a solid smiley face circle. The reason it gives you 3 different levels is because it detects an elevation in estrogen first and then a detection of luteinizing hormone elevation. To me, the more information I have, the better I feel, the more confident I feel about my next steps. So to me, having that additional step to kind of give me almost like a warning, like it's soon-ish, you better start testing more than you were previously, was helpful. I also came to find out that my middle ground, like the rise in estrogen, can sometimes be extremely short. Different parts of your cycle can differ every single month. And I remember one month it went from level 1 to level 3 because I was only testing 1 time a day. So I didn't actually capture level 2 and semi-panicked. I felt like these tests were very reliable and that they overall weren't that much more expensive than the others. They were HSA and FSA eligible in case you guys have an account like that. So to wrap up on ovulation testing, I would do your own research, see what your comfortable purchase price is, what you're comfortable with maybe just testing out for a few months and changing if you want to. What I will say is I appreciated sticking with the same ovulation test every single month, because then I could have that not be a factor. My degree and my background is in science. So to me, like, I look at things like an experiment, and if you were to go from one ovulation test to another one, to another one, to another one, or even if you just made one switch, you have to then take into account that as a factor. Like, you could be getting some sort of different results because of that change, if that makes sense. So to me, it was important to stay with one so I could compare them relatively evenly every single month. So the next thing that I focused on and want to touch on in this video is to focus as much as you can maybe on improving your own egg quality. Now, I do know as a woman, as a female, you are born with the eggs that you will have for a lifetime, and that your egg quality does deplete over time, which is why when you're older or in an older pregnancy, they start to maybe do more testing or suggest more testing or suggest different types of care as maybe you progress in age and are pregnant. So what I did is I started researching ways to just increase my chances of having a healthy egg. And you guys can do a quick Google search and it'll give you a lot of information regarding your diet, specific things that it thinks you should eat. And a couple of those things that I focused on were my diet and increasing the healthy foods that they were recommending, increasing the healthy supplements that they were recommending as well. Some of them I was already taking, and decreasing the amount of stress, which is just an ongoing battle. When I got pregnant with Kala, I was maintaining an extremely strict vegan and gluten-free diet minus eggs. I was still consuming eggs. And that was something that I started to follow again after I quit breastfeeding. When I became pregnant, I looked at a lot of different research. I weighed the pros and cons, I weighed my own symptoms, and I actually started incorporating meat back into my diet. But again, once I stopped breastfeeding Kala, I slowly, I would say, got back into the same diet style. I will 100% assure you I was never as strict as I was prior to getting pregnant with Kala. I will say that I noticed a lot of different improvements with my body while following such a strict diet regimen. And I tried to bring some of those things back in prior to getting pregnant again and while we were overall trying to conceive. The supplements that I was taking that are also correlated with healthy egg production are things like CoQ10 and fish oil. Some of the other supplements that I was making sure to incorporate into my daily regimen were probiotics, and recently here, pre-probiotics. I was taking calcium with vitamin D, I was taking a B vitamin, and aspirin. Again, all of these things you 100% need to run by your own provider prior to changing anything about your current regimen. I will link a couple of the specific supplements that I'm taking down below in the description bar in case you guys are just completely confused on where to begin looking for something like that. One of the ways that I maintained a healthy stress level, because in my world stress is never going away completely, I just have accepted that, is I made it a point to go to the gym at least twice a week. I coordinated my schedule with my mom so that she could watch Kala for 2 hours while I ran to the gym. I would walk down to the gym, I'd walk back, and that way I could make sure I was getting some sort of healthy exercise, and that was not only healthy for my mental state, but also healthy for me physically. So I'd highly recommend you guys researching whatever it is for you that's gonna make you feel that way. That's going to be something good for your mind, something good for your body, something that's gonna help you de-stress. Because as we all know, if you're in the TTC community, The biggest issue is how stressful it is, because you want something so badly sometimes that you are hyper focused on it, and it just becomes to take over your entire world basically. The next thing I focused on that I will share with you guys was how to ensure that Donald had the best chance at having healthy sperm production. Donald and I never went through any sort of testing that determined neither of us had a healthy specimen. Like, I was never told that, you know, my eggs were of poor quality, and Donald was never told anything about his sperm quality. But in my research, I'm just a little bit overboard sometimes in my research. I was thinking to myself, it couldn't hurt to focus on making sure that we have the best chance possible at egg quality and at sperm quality. So again, you guys can do a quick Google search to see all of the pretty straightforward and easy ways to ensure quality sperm production. A couple of the things we took away from that were, again, to lower stress, to add in exercise as much as you can. Donald also started taking CoQ10 and fenugreek. Now, what I will say when I did my research about ensuring or trying to help sperm quality there were a lot of different like supplements, and I just didn't know enough about them, and I didn't feel like I had enough time to like put in full research before asking my husband to take something that I didn't really understand. So that's why we landed on fenugreek. I myself took fenugreek for a long time after I gave birth to Kala to help with breast milk production. There's been a lot of research about its correlation to sperm quality as well. The last and biggest point that I'm going to share with you guys in today's video is the topic of baby dancing. There are so many things online about how much you should have sex, when you should have sex, how many times a day you should have sex to try to conceive. And I feel like I filtered through so much of that and want to give you my take on what I think is most important. If you guys have been following along with the first step and tracking your period, and you've found that you've noticed some patterns, that you feel like you have a good idea of maybe when you're ovulating, or at least the time frame of when you might be ovulating, and you guys are a step ahead, and you guys are going to have a lot easier time and a lot less pressure than somebody who doesn't really know their patterns yet or has no idea when they ovulate. If you're coming from a situation where you really have no idea, even if you have been tracking or you haven't been tracking your periods one way or the other, I would highly suggest trying to have sex every other day or every other day. That's not my first recommendation whatsoever for anybody, unless you can maintain that. And if you can, then that's amazing. What I have read is that if you are having sex too much, then you could be lowering your chances of ensuring sperm quality. And there's a lot of things that go into why your sperm can actually meet the egg, and if they are just overall of poorer quality or not as great of quality as maybe you'd like, then overall that lessens your chances of becoming pregnant that cycle. If you think you have a pretty good idea of when you ovulate, I would start looking at your fertile window as being the bigger idea that you need to focus on, rather than I need to have sex every other day. You don't want to get to a place where you're burnt out, like you've been so focused on having sex every other day that now you've made it to your fertile window, and maybe it's not until a little bit later than normal in your cycle, and you're just completely burnt out. The sperm quality is not what you thought it was gonna be, and now you're just like, well, there we go. And then you don't end up with the results that you want. A fertile window is usually about 5 days long. And the reason I say to focus on that is because I think that is your time frame of when it is most important for you to have sex. So basically focusing on the few days before you ovulate to the few days after you ovulate, and really focusing on having sex at least every other day during that fertile window, possibly even every day once you think you've hit ovulation. So if you have a date that you think you're ovulating, what if you ovulate a little bit earlier than expected? You will want to have still caught your ovulation by focusing on having sex a little bit before maybe you think you're going to ovulate. Or the opposite end, what if you ovulate a little bit later? Focusing on having sex for a couple days after what you think is your ovulation could also increase your odds of becoming pregnant. Once you get your positive ovulation test, Ovulation typically happens 12 to 36 hours after that. The reason I'm talking about this is because I think so many people get caught up in like, I have to have sex every day or have to have sex every other day. So by focusing on that fertile window, I think that is going to major increase your success. The last thing I will say about the topic of baby dancing is I did lay down for about 10 to 15 minutes after baby dancing every time. In general, I don't think that this is like the end all be all thing that is going to successfully help you to become pregnant. But more so, I think it's a lot of different things coming together to help you get that successful BFP. If you guys are into laying down for 10 to 15 minutes after you have sex, definitely research something called the soft cup method, which I didn't know about until I heard it from the Fields fam last night. But it sounded really interesting and just an alternative option for that situation. And that is it for today's video. I think I have fully spilled everything that I possibly knew, that I researched, that I would recommend to any of my friends to research on their own, to talk to their doctor about if they were themselves trying to conceive. Again, I just want to say a huge shout out to everybody who has stuck around on my channel, who had been with me for so long while I was in our TTC journey and now is still supporting us so kindly while we have become successfully pregnant. I know so many of you are still waiting for your big positive. Please know that I'm thinking of you and I'm sending you all of the best vibes. I'm praying for you guys that you will get your BFP exactly when you're supposed to get it. If you guys watch this video and feel like I've left something out, leave me a comment down below. I know so many people watching this video would love to have the opportunity to hear from other people who have found successful ways to become pregnant. Give this video a thumbs up if you appreciated my honesty. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below before you guys leave today's video so you can keep up with us as we go through this baby number 2 journey. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video and watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.